you start dating someone, but they're not ready for that. Oftentimes the trap that we fall into is trying to convince them that we're worth committing to, we're worth dating exclusively, right? And if that other person isn't ready, it's probably not about you. It's probably about something that's going on in their own life. And that can be really damaging to our self-esteem to try to convince someone to be with us or to choose and commit to us when really it's not our fault.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. I am here with Lauren Fondriest today, and she is a women's dating coach. Thank you so much for joining us, Lauren.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Do you mind telling us about your background and how you became a women's dating coach?
Yes. So I am a women's dating coach, which means that I help women date with more intention and more confidence to find the right partner for them. I believe that romantic love is one of the greatest things that we can experience in this lifetime. And we weren't taught how to date, most of us growing up. And so I see so many women really struggling with dating in today's world. I struggled myself with dating before I met my husband. And that is my fuel to help women who want to find that loving and committed partnership date in a healthier and better way.
That's so beautiful. What challenges did you come across when you were dating before you met your husband?
I was in a cycle of situationships, meaning I would go on dates, I would maybe have chemistry with someone and get really excited about going out on more dates with them. But I never stopped to ask, what do they want out of dating?
Hmm.
I just assumed that because we were going on multiple dates and they were spending time with me, that they were open to building a committed relationship. But those were all assumptions that I was making. And those ended up hurting me because they crashed and burned quickly. And I got my heart broken over and over again. And I realized that the only common denominator here is myself. So it was really a wake-up call for me to take a step back and say, I know I'm a great catch, and I know that I truly want deep love in my life. How do I approach dating differently to find that?
Something that you said that stuck out to me was you would go on these dates with people and there would be chemistry and some there wouldn't. You guys would have a good time and you would make assumptions in your minds. How often do us as women make those assumptions that the other person wants to be in a serious committed relationship?
This is so common. I think many times women will assume, oh, if he's continuing to go on dates with me, he's spending time with me, we're having a great time, it must be going somewhere. And I say that with quotes. It must be going somewhere. And to women, that often means to a committed monogamous relationship. Right? And now everybody might be looking for something a little bit different in dating. That's okay. The point is that without having a conversation with your date to align on what are you hoping for, what are they hoping for, and making sure that you're on the same page, you could get really invested in someone or build up a fantasy in your head. That's what I always did about how this was going to play out before they even have expressed that maybe they're not looking for something serious. They're not looking for a committed relationship.
That's so valid though. Like you just said, like you were building these fantasies in your head before you and the other person communicated. But I would do the same thing too, and so many other people do that. Why do you think situationships are so common these days?
Right, to your point, it feels so natural, right? So many of us do that. And I think the key here is that because we weren't taught how to date,
Yeah.
we don't know the importance of having these conversations very early on in date 1 or 2. Right? I think it's so important to have a conversation to see if you're on the same page about where you want to go. And you might not know if they're the right person for that, but do you have the same goals that you're working towards? And those are scary conversations to have. I totally get why people hold back from having those, because we might be scared that it would push that person away. But honestly, if it's someone that is worth investing your time in, if they do want the same thing that you do, having that conversation is ideally going to pull you closer. And then it'll push away the people that don't want the same thing that you do.
That's true. I think a lot of times we want to filter out on dates, ask those questions. Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? Where do you want to live? Do you see yourself working in your current job for 5, 10 years from now? But when do you recommend to have those conversations? Because you don't want to scare them right away on the first or second date.
Honestly, I would recommend to have those questions on the first or second date. And now that depends where you're coming from, right? It depends. Are you dating to find that committed partner at this point in time? Then yes, I would recommend asking those right away. But if you're looking to date more casually or get more experience in dating before finding a committed partner, sure, then you might want to wait a little bit longer. But what I find in so many women is that we get emotionally invested quickly.
Yeah.
And we're really doing ourselves a disservice by waiting to have those conversations. Imagine how much more empowering it would feel to go into dating already knowing what you want and what you're looking for, and then being able to ask the right questions on dates to really see, is this person aligned in the direction that I want to go?
That's so true. Thank you for sharing that. I like how you said it's okay to ask on the first date because if you know what you're looking for and that other person who is looking for it as well, then they won't be faced by it, right?
Right. And of course, in a first date, you don't know if they are the person that you want to build that committed relationship with yet. It just sets the stage for, this is what we're both looking for out of the dating process.
Makes total sense. So I think a lot of times, from my personal experience, like some people that you end up in a situation with, things can go well, like you said, things click at first, but then they're afraid to commit. Why are people afraid to commit?
Oh, such a good question. And there are probably a million answers to that, depending on the person.
Yeah.
For many people, they have to come to that readiness themselves, that they feel like they have their life in order or they're ready to commit to a partnership or to a long-term relationship. And what's so challenging is, let's say as a woman dating, you're going in and you're ready for that, and you start dating someone but they're not ready for that. Oftentimes the trap that we fall into is trying to convince them that we're worth committing to, we're worth dating exclusively. If that other person isn't ready, it's probably not about you. It's probably about something that's going on in their own life. And that can be really damaging to our self-esteem to try to convince someone to be with us or to choose and commit to us when really it's not our fault. Some of them actually have a fear of success. They know that they want that incredible committed relationship, but maybe they're afraid to give up independence
Mhm.
or what they're used to having, the lifestyle that they're used to living while single. And that's something that I work through with my clients to say, right, are you really ready? Or what can you do during your single phase to truly embrace being on your own, getting to know yourself, getting to know your own needs? So when you are ready, you can approach dating differently.
Yeah.
I think there's some element of fear around losing independence that many women that I talk to have. We've built our own incredible lives. We've built our careers. Maybe you're a homeowner or you've made a decision to move somewhere, right, on your own. And then you think, oh my gosh, do I have to give that up? Do I have to give up my lifestyle to be in a relationship? And I would encourage the women who really value their independence, I'm one of them, to think about, well, what's important to you about that independence? And how can you get really clear on what do you need to maintain that independence, even when you're dating or when you're in a relationship? So, for example, this could look like I really need my alone time. So, I'm going to tell my partner that every Sunday afternoon, I need alone time to go to my yoga class and do my journaling and do the things just to fill up my cup so then I can come back feeling better. So the key there is to get really specific if there's something around independence that could help you maintain that while you're dating.
That's a really valid point because I think a lot of times us as women, we're so used to doing everything for ourselves or for other people, from going to work, doing groceries, cleaning the house, taking care of family members if that's the case, and just doing the whole 9 yards. How do you recommend balancing out having our own independence and being in a relationship?
Good question. And I think even before getting to that point, how do you balance dating?
Yeah.
Meaning, how much time are you willing to spend or invest in the dating process, especially if you have so many other commitments already in your life? I heard this question come up recently, and it really is a very individual and personal question to figure out. How important is it for you to find a partner? And therefore, how much time do you want to invest in finding dates and going on dates or putting yourself out there through singles events? So I think that's a very tough question that a lot of women face, especially women who have so many other obligations or responsibilities or passions going on in their lives already.
What are some things that have helped you prepare yourself more to be ready while you were single? Because I also believe that being single is a gift. You know, it gives you the opportunity to fall in love with yourself. So, what are some things that you did that helped you prepare?
I'm so glad you brought that up because I truly feel that self-love is at the foundation,
Yeah.
right? We have to love ourselves first to not only for the benefit of, our own lives, that is a lifelong journey, but the role that it plays in dating is that you can date from that higher self-worth,
Mm.
meaning you take care of yourself. So you know what's important to you. And that helps you identify in dating what you're not willing to tolerate, right? If someone's not treating you well. So I think that's part of it. The journey while single is really learning how to take care of your own needs, identifying what those needs even are. That could be alone time. It could be needs around your mental health or your fitness, or spending time with your friends, right? Dedicating time to your career. It could be around any of those things. And being able to fill up your own cup while you're single, to pour that energy back into your own interests, your own healing. We talked about this healing as an individual when you're single versus healing in partnership. And sometimes there's a misconception here that we have to be completely healed before getting into a relationship. Well, that's not realistic, right? As we know, healing could be a lifelong journey.
Yes.
And I think there's different healing that could be done on your own versus healing in a partnership. So I would think about, if you're single, you know, what are the blocks that are preventing you from either being open to love or receiving love that you can begin to work through with a coach or a therapist or some other kind of modality, because once you're in a partnership, you're going to face a whole new set of healing together.
Yeah, that's so true. I love how you said that because we talked about this before that you can heal yourself to a certain point and not there's a finish line for healing. It's a lifelong journey. And it's a good thing that you're continuing to heal different areas of your life, but also once you get into a relationship, a healthy one, then that can heal the parts of you that you can't on your own. It's a really beautiful way to say it.
Thank you. That's so true. And I would ask you too, right? When you think about prioritizing self-love in a single phase, what are some examples that you've seen that or have worked well for you?
For me, it's really one of the biggest things that have helped me on my healing journey is not running away from what my past relationship was. I think for the longest time I was running away because I didn't want to face the truth on what the situations actually were. So I had to like look myself in the mirror, and sometimes I would sit there for 10 minutes and I would just tell myself like this is how it played out, but that is not your future. And then I had to reassure myself with positive affirmations on you are beautiful, you are love, and you are worthy of receiving love from somebody else. And those are things that have helped me along the way.
That's so beautiful. I love the affirmations that you shared and really reclaiming that love for yourself. I think so much of what we're looking for in relationships is really, how do you want to feel
Mm,
in a relationship? Do you want to feel like you're loved exactly for who you are with all your quirks? you know, do you want to feel secure in a relationship? Do you want to feel inspired in a relationship? And then I would encourage you to build that feeling in your single life. So, for example, if you want to feel secure in a relationship, you want to attract a secure partner, create that security for yourself first. So that could be as simple as honoring your promises to yourself.
yeah.
So if you say you're going to work out tomorrow, go work out tomorrow and do it over and over again. So you're keeping promises to yourself and creating that security in your own life. I talk so much about energy in dating and energy in terms of like the vibration that we give off
Yeah.
and how we show up, which is based on our mindset, our belief system, and what we're carrying into a situation like dating or even a specific date. And really cultivating the energy of what do you want to attract in a partner, because energy attracts like energy. So we attract things that are similar to us at that same level.
Yeah, that's so true. It definitely goes back to the energy that you carry within yourself because what you carry is what you attract. And if you're not willing to heal your past wounds and move forward from them, then you're not going to be able to attract better. And I'm really happy that you brought that up. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between healthy signs of a relationship and an unhealthy signs of relationships?
Ooh, good question. I would say my goal is to help women build a healthy relationship from the very beginning.
Mhm.
This is something that you can start even when you're single, right? And it really, again, it goes back to that self-love and self-worth and really rooting in your own self-trust, because that helps you identify what's right for you and what's not right for you. So strengthening that self-trust muscle could look like listening to your intuition
Mm.
or allowing yourself to journal or meditate or find some other way to be able to tune in to the wisdom that your own body already carries for you. So I would say that's the first piece, is really strengthening that self-trust, that intuition. Learn how to listen to your body, because your body will tell you even before your mind whether a situation is right for you or not. And when I say right, I mean, is it aligned? Does it feel good for you? Does it feel healthy for you? So that's piece one. And then in terms of building a healthy relationship, I think it's no surprise to say that communication is absolutely critical here.
Mhm.
And part of that communication, as we talked about earlier, is aligning that you're heading in the same direction, that you both want to be in a certain type of relationship, and that you feel like you can fully show up as yourself around them. I see a lot of women, myself included, when I was dating, dim themselves or shrink our accomplishments, shrink our opinions, our expression to be more likable. This is another trap that I feel like a lot of women fall into, is not showing up fully as themselves to try to attract someone. And at the end of the day, to be in a really healthy relationship with the person who's right for you, you're going to have to be fully yourself, right? You want to be in a relationship with someone that really loves you as you, and not a version that you pretended to be for a few dates.
I really like the two things that you said. One, you said listen to your body and trust your gut. Why do us women ignore our gut feeling more times than others?
So true. I feel like this is an innate wisdom that we all have access to,
Yeah.
but in our modern day society, we're often not taught or encouraged to tap into that. So most of our lives, right, we're taught to think about things and think about the pros and cons. And it's listening to our bodies is something that we really truly have to keep coming back to as a practice to strengthen that, because it helps you tap into a whole different source of data and information and wisdom for yourself than just thinking about it. And when you're thinking about something, not to minimize that, that's also important. But we're often thinking and being driven by our unconscious wounds from the past, or our default behaviors, repeating the same patterns over and over again. So tuning into your body allows you to access a different level of wisdom and intuition to see if something's right for you, and not just listing it out like a pros and cons list.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I feel like a lot of situations that I've either seen or experienced lately, I've noticed that when somebody is used to chaos in a relationship and then they meet somebody who brings the calm and they're not used to that calm, why does that person want to run back to the chaos instead of moving forward with the calm?
Yes, this is so true. It's because our body craves what's familiar.
Mm.
So if that chaos is familiar, whether that's from a recent relationship or even going back to our childhoods, that's what we were attuned to. So we end up choosing that chaos over and over again because it's familiar. And if we haven't learned to sit with the calm and be able to actually receive that, it can feel really challenging and almost repelling for people. So that's a case where I feel like maybe there is more individual healing to do, either individual or in a partnership, to be able to welcome peace and calm, and creating that in your own life and working through the discomfort of that. Because ultimately, to get in a lasting, healthy relationship, peace and calm are going to be the priorities.
Yeah, that's so true. I was talking with my friend about this the other day, and she was confused why this new guy that she met and she was excited about him, and she was kind of confused why he was just taking things slow. And I was like, this might sound a little boring for you, but I think that's actually a good sign that he wants to take things slow because it's not the chaos that we're used to from our past. And I think it can be not boring, but challenging in different ways. What's your opinion on that?
Absolutely. And I think it's very normal that someone might experience that as being boring
Yeah.
and might walk away too soon. So I love that you shared with your friend, right? Stay with it a little bit longer. It's okay for it to go slow. It's actually healthy for it to go a little bit slower because then you get a chance to get to know someone better over time without that intense crash and burn energy that
Yeah.
comes with the chemistry or that chaos that often occurs at the beginning of a situationship.
What are the biggest struggles that you see in your clients that you work with? What are some of like their biggest struggles that are common throughout in dating?
I think even from the very beginning is being able to find people to go on dates with. A lot of women I talk to are burnt out on dating apps,
Yeah.
and it's understandable because dating apps are gamified. It's like a slot machine, right? It's that dopamine hit of coming back and back and back. And oftentimes people don't put the level of investment in actually taking a match and turning it into a real life date and playing it out and seeing if there's a chance there when the next best person is just a couple swipes away. So it creates this sense of, I call it FOBO, fear of better options. It's like, why invest in this one person when I could have so many better options out there? That's the mindset that we think when we're on a dating app. But in reality, if you actually go out on a few dates with someone and you like them, you're in alignment with them, you see that you want the same things, please play it out, right? Please give it a try because it is feeling harder and harder to find that. Um, Actually, another thing I want to talk about here is when women say, I got the ick.
Oh, the ick.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, the
Okay.
icks. Talk.
So a lot of people will, see something, right? Some silly small behavior and say, oh, I got the ick. I don't want to see him again. Okay, well, I'm going to challenge you on that. Is it truly, truly a deal breaker? Or is it something so silly and small that you have probably forgotten about it a couple days later?
Yeah.
Like, are you pushing away someone that could potentially be a good match for you based on something so silly and superficial?
Do you
But I'm curious, what's your take on the ick?
do you feel like that word is overused? Ick.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
I think that it's also overused because it's like instead of saying, "Oh, like it's kind of like a yellow flag, it's tolerable, but I'm not a fan of it," immediately we go to ick. I remember when I just left my last relationship and then I started to get back into the dating world and I would talk to like my friends and they would always overuse that word. Oh, this person gave me the ick. Oh, this person did this, so I have the ick now. But do you really? I don't think so. I think it's just an overrated word.
I agree. I think people are using it too often and weeding out people too soon.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to take a step back and say, is this a legitimate deal breaker for me? Okay, absolutely. There are red flags, there are deal breakers, of course. We want you to be able to break those off sooner. But if it is something very silly that you could potentially deal with,
Somebody walks in the house with their shoes on. Oh, that gave me the ick. No, it didn't.
Yeah. Did you like them before they did that?
Just tell them to take it off, make a boundary about it. I don't know.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Right, those are some of the situations where you need to communicate. If that bothers you or if you have a certain expectation around spending time together or being in your home or how you communicate with each other, everybody has different preferences on that. Nobody's a mind reader. I think we tend to think that our dates are mind readers, but they're not. So, really getting clear and comfortable telling people what you want.
Yeah, that's so true. When you talk about communicating with your partner or a potential person that you want to date, what if somebody like myself, I was not used to communication and I was actually afraid to communicate. I was afraid to communicate because I was afraid it was just going to fire back at me. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to be more open about communication and do it in a healthy way?
Yeah, I think this is a very normal place to come from. A lot of times we're afraid to speak up because we're worried that it'll ruffle feathers or it'll turn into an argument. And most of us are very conflict avoidant. The key here is to practice. And that's where working with someone like a coach or a therapist could come into play, is to get that practice in a safe and neutral space of, well, what things would you want to communicate? And how might you communicate that in a way that is not emotionally charged? And even, there are some tactics about when to bring things up, meaning don't bring it up in bed, don't bring it up in the middle of an argument, right? Think about a very like neutral, safe time to bring things up. And even maybe give a heads up and say, hey, I'd love to chat with you about something. Like, can we schedule time to focus on that? So there are a few tactics and ideas around that to help you have better conversations. But so much of it comes back to courage. And we get this fear of, oh my gosh, I want to say something, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to hold my tongue. And if you play this out, if you hold your tongue time after time after time, you're not building a relationship based on a foundation of trust and
Mhm.
honesty. And you're likely to resent that relationship or that person down the road. So I really, really encourage women to get outside of their comfort zones and find the courage to have those harder conversations, because it is an investment in your own self-worth,
That's
in creating and building that healthier relationship. You really have to be your own best advocate. Relationships can be scary, dating can be uncomfortable, but that's part of the process to enable you to find and build a healthy relationship.
It's a really beautiful way to put it because I think a lot of times, someone like myself, I was in a really unhealthy relationship once upon a time, and communication, like I tried, like I would tell myself, like, okay, I'm gonna try to communicate this, but every time I tried to communicate it, it always came backfiring at me. But there was just like a lot of narcissistic traits, so that's why. But it wasn't like just like a normal relationship where one person just doesn't want to listen. It was just completely different. What would you recommend for somebody to start working on to want to be more open with communication and want to bring those conversations to the surface? I like what you said about scheduling a time instead of bringing it up in the heat of the moment. If there's an argument or a hiccup, what are some tips that you would recommend?
A "we need to talk" text is gonna freak anybody out. So, how can you do this in a way that feels a little bit more neutral? So, if you are starting to date someone or you're already into a relationship and you want to discuss something with them, you could give them a heads up and say like, "Hey, let's plan a dinner. I'd love to talk to you about something. And maybe even like give them a little heads up or context on what it's about, so they're not making up a story in their head
Mhm.
going into it. And maybe they have a chance to come in with a point of view as well. There are a number of different ways to approach this. But I would say really find that neutral, safe space to have a conversation that's not in an emotionally charged time already.
What advice would you give to a couple if, let's say, one person wants to talk immediately after the small argument, and then there's somebody who wants to take their time and think about it and then come back in a few hours or the next day? What advice would you give on that?
This is such a good question, because once you are in a committed relationship, you're going to have to learn how to argue in a healthy way, right? Every relationship, at some point you will have an argument, and if you don't, I might ask, what are you hiding?
True.
So you have to learn how to do this in a healthy way, that assuming it's a relationship that you want to continue to be in,
Yeah.
that you're really keeping in mind you're on the same team and you want to work towards repair. So to your question about if something comes up, one partner wants to talk about it in the moment, one partner wants to take a time out. I experienced this with my husband, right? We had that dynamic going, and we've had to do a lot of practice with that in our relationship. So we might, get as far as we can get in the moment. And then sometimes I will go into a freeze state, which is like, you'll fight or flight, and then you'll freeze and fawn, which are the other two states when your body is in that panic mode, which means if I'm in a freeze state, I feel like paralyzed, like I can't say anything. So then that's my indication. I need to call a timeout. I cannot continue this conversation. But then we make an agreement at what time we are going to come back to the conversation. We're not going to avoid it, right? And then that might be 24 hours later. So then that gives us both a chance to calm down, regulate ourselves, and reapproach it with a fresher perspective.
That's a really great example of healthy communication. Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of times it can be hard, especially in the heat of the moment. But once you realize, like, it's not worth arguing about in the heat of the moment and just agree on a time to come back to the topic, I think that's a beautiful way of handling it.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what has been the most rewarding thing since finding your husband and going going through all of the situationships?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I would really just say that it is worth it to wait and find a partner who really, really is incredibly right for you. I don't want to minimize that a lot of us made mistakes along the way and got in relationships that weren't right along the way, but holding out that hope that your person is out there. Got married when I was 36 years old, and I'm now 2.5 years into marriage, and it hasn't been without its challenges. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but I feel so deeply, deeply happy and fulfilled that I found the right partner for me. I feel very lucky to say that, but also I put in the work to get there. So I think that's also a reminder that I want to give, is that there are true skills that can be learned around how to date and how to build a healthy relationship. That's really why I work with women, is because I want them to feel empowered that they can find their version of an incredible relationship. I think finding someone who's aligned with your values is so, so important. So my partner and I are both very growth-oriented people. So we've done a ton of that healing and growth in relationship with each other, which is incredible. And I feel like we can totally be ourselves around each other.
That's so beautiful. So before we go ahead and wrap things up, can you leave the audience with a piece of advice who are on their dating journey, whether they're still in the situationship kind of era and or if they're looking for a committed relationship? What piece of advice can you leave with them today that they can start to add into their life?
Yeah. I would say when in doubt, pour love back into yourself. Take care of yourself. Fill up your own cup every single day because that's what will allow you to date from a healthier place yourself. When you know how important it is to take care of yourself, then you show that to a current or future partner of how important it is for you to be taken care of, and you know what that looks like, so they can be on the same page as that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for everything, Lauren. Where can people find you and where can they support you and stay on the journey with you?
Thank you. Thank you. I would love to talk to women who want to learn how to date in a healthier way. I support women through one-on-one dating coaching, and it really begins from that foundation of self-love, cultivating your magnetic energy so you learn how to attract people that are right for you, and you're healing your past dating patterns so you're not dating the same person with 5 different names, and you have the strategy and accountability to put yourself out there in a way that feels authentic to you. So those are all the things that I support women through in one-on-one dating coaching. You can find me through my website, laurenfondriest.com, or on Instagram at Lauren Fondriest.
Amazing. I'll have all of that linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch with you. Thank you for joining us today, Lauren.
Thank you so much.